ChatGPT, it's pretty smart. It's absolutely amazing at certain things, like developing you a weight loss plan or writing a school paper. But it's also really bad at other things, like telling a joke.
Why don't rockets ever get lost? Because they always follow their launch instincts.
Stop it.
But I wanted to know, can you play Kerbal Space Program by letting ChatGPT design your rockets? And to answer this question, I laid out a little test. Here I've created 7 individual rounds to put ChatGPT through that get progressively harder until the end, where we ask it to design us a light speed ship with only stock parts. And I don't know what will happen, so look forward to that. But before we start asking AI to do rocket science for us, let's first lay out a couple of ground rules. Rule number 1, I can't alter the design that I'm given. If I can't understand something, I can ask for clarification, but I cannot suggest changes. Rule number 2, subscribe. Rule number 3, when writing a prompt like this, AI also gives us a flight plan, and I'll try to use it, but ultimately I'm the human and I can fly it how I want to. And lastly, rule number 4, at the end of each stage, I will judge how ChatGPT did and what I would do to change it to make it more efficient. But that's enough yapping, let's hop in and see what it can do. Round 1, orbit. We're starting off in stage 1 with the objective being rather simple. We need to make it from the launch pad and into orbit, and then back down again without killing the pilot. This task is pretty simple, and if you're watching this video right now, you've probably done this yourself. So I have high hopes that ChatGPT can do this. This is the ChatGPT Mark 1. This is probably something you created in your own game. This is a very standard sort of rocket. I give this rocket a very high degree probability of success. It just seems like a rocket that's gonna work. This is definitely gonna work, but also like it should work. You know, this is like the basic level of making a rocket. All right, there it is. This rocket definitely makes it into orbit with quite a bit of Delta V to spare. Let's see if it comes back. Okay, so I can say that we passed this round with flying colors. It did its job effectively, the pilot survived the journey, and it's pretty much exactly what I would have designed early on in a KSP save. So, let's move on to the next round. Round 2, Mun Landing and Return. I think what most people try to do in KSP after making it into orbit is attempt a Mun landing. With good reason too, because landing on the Mun is still fun, even having played as long as I have. But can ChatGPT design us a rocket to leave Kerbal, land on the Mun, plant a flag, and return, all while leaving Valentina unharmed? I'm less sure about this one, but let's see what we can get. It wants okay, so we've had our 1.25, we're stepping up to the 2.5 mark. I don't think aesthetics were exactly thought of. And here we have the ChatGPT Mark II. It's not very aesthetically pleasing. This abrupt change from 1.25 to 2.5 meter parts, a little bit ugly. Allegedly, this craft can make it to the Mun and back. Let's see. It is not very stable right off the gate. Okay, decouple. It was a little bit wobbly and hard to control, but after we got into space, everything was a lot easier. I got into orbit, I got an encounter with the Mun, and then came in for a landing. Okay, that worked. I think that's a good spot for this flag to be right on top of this rock here. Thank you, ChatGPT. This all seemed very successful, so I took off the Mun and headed for home. But one thing happened here. I ran out of fuel. So that didn't really work how I thought it would. So I had to reload an old save and then do a suicide burn coming in from the Mun just to be like more efficient with my landing. And that little bit of efficiency did give me enough to get back home. Oh, that's not good. Oh, okay. See, we're fine, no biggie. Guess we gotta hand it to AI, that is technically another success. A little lighter on the Delta V than I probably would have made myself, but time to move on to the next stage. Round 3, single stage to orbit. In KSP, this is also a common thing to do, trying to build a single stage to orbit space plane. And I'm not the greatest at building these, something you know if you've watched my stream. The Aunt Fanny is cleared for takeoff. Okay, we appear to be going into something. Okay, this is fine. Yep, okay, that was good, that was good. Regardless, this isn't about my skills, it's about the AI skills. So what is the goal for stage 3? Well, we need a space plane that can take off the runway, fly out of the atmosphere, and into orbit, before landing safely back on the planet, and not killing anybody. It wants me to add a part that I don't think exists. It wants a Mark 1 liquid fuel fuselage that also has oxidizer in it. So I'm going to do ChatGPT, a service here, and I'm just going to slap this bad boy on there. Wait, it wants one big S delta wing? What's the one wing strat? I'm going to ask it. I'm going to say, why one delta wing? I think this is what it wants me to do. I can't imagine how this is picturing me to have one wing. This can't be correct. Okay, the wheels are definitely an issue. Alright. Let's give that another go. I don't know how they thought one wing was really a solid idea. Oh! Okay, I feel stupid right now for building the ship like this, but it's like, where else could you put one wing, you know? Do you put it up top? Oh, Valentine, sorry about them G's. We are flying right now. It's kind of hard to gather speed whenever you're constantly spinning. I just need to lift up. It's so hard to fight it though. Despite my willpower to make this thing work, it was just not stable enough to get into orbit. I did eventually see that my landing gear were down and I fixed that, but it still sucked. I gotta say, this design of a space plane is absolutely cheeks. It's horrible to control, it's slow, the parts it needs don't actually exist, and it doesn't even have that much delta V. It's bad by every metric that I can think of. Fail. A one-way Eve mission is definitely a ramp up in difficulty from what we've been doing so far. Firstly, because we have to go way further. And secondly, because Eve's atmosphere is incredibly thick. If you hit this thing without a heat shield, an explosion will surely follow. Can ChatGPT not only give us enough delta V to leave Kerbin's sphere of influence, but also engineer something that can make it through Eve's death zone and land on the surface? Well, here it is. Here's the ChatGPT Mark IV. This thing is going to go to Eve, allegedly. I'm kind of skeptical in the amount of delta V that we have here, and also a suspicious lack of wings. Noting the rather suspicious lack of wings on our craft here, I went for it. I went for full send, and my rocket didn't really go up. It kind of just went sideways. So I had to take it back to the drawing board and add some wings on it myself. I'm not going to knock too many points off ChatGPT for not adding wings to this craft, but that's not really how they told me to make it. So yeah, let's try this. A little bit more maneuverability. The winged launch was much better and actually allowed us to lift up the spaceship and get into orbit. After getting into orbit, we had to wait nearly 2 years for an Eve transfer window. We burned until we got an encounter with Eve. And ChatGPT told me the entry between 75 and 85 kilometers was enough to get captured, but this was not at all deep enough, and it ended up flying past the planet. So I reloaded and went back again around 55 kilometers. This was deep enough to get us captured. Valentine is definitely dead. These G-forces are off the charts. I'm also going to discard this bottom heat shield. I don't think that I need it anymore. That was good. Good stuff. Wiggle this thing free here. Okay. Deploy drogues. Volumetric clouds. It's gotta be the best mod in KSP. Gotta be. What was that? Was that too much parachute? So whenever all of my parachutes deployed at once, apparently that just completely ripped the spacecraft apart. I can't really hold this one against ChatGPT too much because it's like, you know, how can you predict a Kraken attack like that? But I retried it again, I deployed less parachutes, and that worked far more efficiently. And touchdown. Excellent. So can ChatGPT land on Eve? I'm going to say yes. Yes, it can. It made 2 minor mistakes. It didn't tell me to add fins on my craft whenever I was launching off of Kerbin. And secondly, it gave me wrong advice on where to aero capture around Eve. But those 2 things are pretty minor, so I'm going to give it a pass. On to the next round. Round 5. Orbital Station. While some may say that an Eve mission is actually harder than building a station in orbit, and I might be inclined to agree, but to build a station requires multiple launches, learning the sacred art of the rendezvous, aesthetics, and making sure the separate modules fit together in a cohesive way. And for a clanker, I feel like that might be hard to do, but I've been wrong before. So ChatGPT cooked up a system with 3 separate launches. The first is the core habitation module, the second is a lab, and the third is a service module for maneuverability. Also, the AI had a hard time building a launch vehicle that had enough delta V to get into orbit, so I had to design my own. But regardless, let's get these bad boys into orbit and see how they all fit together. Hope you like that montage, but more importantly, can ChatGPT build an orbital station? I mean, no, not really. I mean, all of the launch vehicles had to be changed, and the bottom thing right here, the bottom service module, didn't even have a probe core, so there's no way that it could have actually docked by itself. It needed a lot of help for me to actually work, so I'm gonna say no. No, it can't. And now it's time to move on to something slightly harder in my opinion, and that would be going interplanetary landing and returning. This is more difficult because the delta V required to go interplanetary is already huge, but to be able to pull off the planet again, then go back into space and head back home is enormous. So do you think AI can account for this and make the journey safely?
No.
I'm guessing no. There are just way too many things that need to be accounted for in a mission like this, but let's see how it goes. I don't really have many complaints about the main ship that ChatGPT had me built. It wasn't very specific, so I kind of just filled in the gaps myself. The main thing though is that this ship is an Apollo style lander. So like, the lander stage disconnects from the top, lands on the planet. Whenever it's done, it comes back, reconnects with the mothership, and they both go back home. This fact isn't super important right now, but it will be very important later on in the mission, so just keep that in the back of your mind. This is the craft that will be taking us to land on Duna, and then return. I will say, this is definitely long as hell. Like, this is the longest rocket ever, dude. And just like the other rocket after getting to orbit, I saw that I had like 3,500 delta V, which for me, in my skill level, is not enough to land on Duna and return. Maybe it's theoretically possible, I don't know. But I had to rebuild this launch stage so I got more delta V going into orbit. Instead of these SRBs, I just added some big boy mainsails, and that worked great. After getting into orbit and waiting another 2 years for a Duna transfer window, we launched all the way out there and then got into a stable orbit. I didn't aero capture very well, but I had enough delta V, so I didn't really have to. And then came the best part. Like ChatGPT suggested, I undocked the lander from the mothership and set off towards the surface. This worked fine, and we successfully landed. It was a beautiful occasion, but sadly I was too scared to jump down and plant a flag on the surface. But Cedron did take the opportunity to take in the majesty of Duna from his oversized heat shield / porch. We took back off, but this is where all my problems really began. I discovered the lander stage didn't have enough gas to make it back into orbit to rendezvous, immediately making the entire mission pointless. I took a step back and reconsidered my options. I thought, why not try to land the entire ship? It might be awkward, but we could try. I landed the whole ship first try, but then this is what happened. Okay, we landed. Get out, get out, get out. I technically landed, bro. Oh no, oh no. Oh no. This isn't good. Get out, get out, get out. Oh no. Then I tried several more times, almost all of them some variation of exploding on the surface, until I got this try. I did technically touch down on the surface, so I'm counting it. The return was pretty boring, just waiting for another transfer window, burning back to Kerbin, angling my orbit so I could safely aero capture. And after that amazing journey, Cedron Kerbin did actually make it through the atmosphere and land on the planet safely. Unfortunately, he landed on North Sentinel Island and was promptly never seen again. But how did AI do? Absolutely trash. This rocket sucked on so many levels. Not only did it not have enough delta V in the Kerbin ascent stage, but it also didn't have enough delta V in the Duna ascent stage. There was also no RCS in the Duna ascent module for docking and rendezvousing. And it lied to me for how low I needed to be for a Duna aero capture. Fail. Absolute fail. Round 7. Near light speed travel. And the last round is to travel at near light speeds in Kerbal Space Program. Now, I know that this is possible, but does ChatGPT know how? I doubt it. After failing the last 2 rounds, I have very low expectations going into this. And you want to know the worst part? ChatGPT actually suggested to me that it can do this. But maybe I'm being too harsh. Let's build what it has in mind and see what happens. Maybe it has a genius idea. The construction was much simpler than I was expecting. It essentially consists of 2 beams, a ton of solar panels, and 2 ion engines. Now, ion engines are incredibly efficient in vacuum, but they are also horrendously slow. So the probe itself needs to be very light to be pushed by them. As it turns out, AI knows how bad they are, but instead suggests that the secret to getting to light speed is on where you pilot them. I'm going to explain his master plan, but first, let's get ourselves into orbit around Kerbal. Okay, so there are 2 principles that are going to take us to light speed. The first is the O-berth effect. The O-berth effect states that rocket engines are more efficient at higher speeds. So if you burn while you're going faster, you can get even more velocity than you normally would. So naturally, if we put our probe in a really low orbit around the sun, we can utilize its gravity to go crazy fast. Okay, so that's the first. Now the second is using all of our solar panels. ChatGPT suggests that as we move closer to the sun, our array of gigantors will be pushed by solar pressure, and these 2 forces at once will send us past the sun at interstellar speeds. We get into position as low as I dared, about 600 kilometers above the surface. I locked in the solar panels and fired up the ion engines to full blast. And how fast did we go? 61 kilometers a second, or about 0.02% of light speed.
Oh my god, bro.
So where does that leave ChatGPT? Well, it failed 4 of the 7 tests that I gave it, and even the ones that it passed I was being pretty generous with, to be honest. So no, I would not trust AI to build me a rocket. Ever. But if you want to see a ship that can actually go near light speeds, check out this video that I have up here in the corner. Like and subscribe my channel, and I promise KSP Hardcore Mode Episode 8 will be the next video I drop. Goodbye.